If you are not on the move yet, now is the time. Get on the move with us right here at the Voice of College Football. On the Move's our recruiting and transfer portal show. We give you each and every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We appreciate you stopping by. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. LeeAnn Herring right next to me to break it all down for us. Hey, LeeAnn.
Hey, how are you doing, Mark?
I'm good. How are you?
I doing good. I don't know about you, but it feels like we're at the almost the tail end of February. It seems like it came and went, but there's definitely always a lot going on. We have a lot of rumblings of course, we can't start off the Tuesday without talking about the coaching carousel. While there haven't been a lot of shakeups, we have seen one of the major topics of concern as far as assistants, head coaches. Not only making being on the move, Mark, but making that jump to the NFL. And we have some shakeups in Austin for one of the running back coaches who has decided to test out the waters in the NFL. We'll definitely be talking about him and who may be some of the early leaders to replace him down in Austin. Of course, we have some big movers and shakers that we've been talking about a lot that we've seen in person this entire season in that 2027 class, deciding that they're going to take a step down, not in their talent and their abilities, but they're deciding to reclassify. So we have one headliner that everyone's been talking about that's going to be going from the 2027 class at 2026 class. And of course, we are on the move on the camp scene. Of course, dead period is just 10 days away from being over. So we're making those last minute moves. Of course, the biggest questions for some of the movers and shakers on the recruiting trail, especially those 4 and those 5 stars in the class of 2026, Mark, and even the class of 2027, is where they'll be camping. But moreover, where they'll be spending their spring and summers. We have a lot of announcements as far as schools that are setting themselves up strongly for some of the top for the nation's top talent. And of course, we have a lot of intel this weekend from another weekend over at the Under Armour camp and combine. This weekend it hit Dallas. They hit Melissa High School. And so we have a lot of rumblings of some of the top players who caught our eye, whose stock is rising. And so let's get to it.
All right, folks, you might be watching us on Facebook or on X. We are simulcasting. Make it on over to YouTube. We've got a new recruiting channel right here at the Voice of College Football. So follow us over here because you can leave your comments and questions right here as we see the ticker going up and up and up. So we appreciate that more people are joining us and jumping on board right now. You may also notice if you check out the team channels across the network here at the Voice of College Football that LeeAnn's popping up. Florida channel, Miami channel, Michigan channel. We have posted a lot of segments with LeeAnn and her recruiting takes over the last couple of weeks. So check those out. And speaking of Florida football, we had a sit down with David Waters from Gators Breakdown yesterday. They are replacing a position coach at Florida because their defensive backs coach went to Miami. And we've got another big assistant coach opening that needs to be replaced. That's at Texas with Tashard Choice. And who is going to replace him? We got a couple candidates possibly coming, whether that's from the Big Ten, LeeAnn, or the ACC.
Yeah, this is not as easy it was for Ohio State to hire within, but some of the guys that we're hearing early rumblings do have some ties to Texas. Obviously, Tashard Choice, it seemed like he was going to stay intact down in Austin with the Longhorns at the running back coach's position. He was initially offered the job with the Dallas Cowboys to come join their team. He decided that was a no-go. So it seemed like Coach Sark was going to be able to move forward. Of course, Choice has been with the program since 2022. Has done a fantastic job on the recruiting trail, but more importantly, done a great job in developing the different running backs that have come through. Of course, Bijan Robinson is one of the most recent names, and the list just goes on. So he's definitely has been a staple for the Longhorns. A lot of consistency and continuity. This definitely will. I don't see that as far as the recruiting trail from some of the running backs that we've been talking about that are set to visit Austin for some unofficial and official visits here in the next couple months. While they are concerning, they feel like Coach Sark is going to be able to make a strong replacement and some of the guys that we're hearing about early. But he will be taking, of course, Tashard Choice decided to go to the NFL. but instead of heading to Dallas, he's going to be heading to Detroit to join the Lions team there. So some of the early names that we're hearing about, of course, EJ Barthel, Nebraska running backs coach. Him and Matt Rule have been kind of that yin to the yang as far as him coaching. Of course, he was with Matt Rule at the Carolina Panthers and at Temple, and now he joins with him at the Cornhuskers. He himself, who better than to develop and coach running backs as a former running back. Barthel's a very interesting, kind of case. He has a lot of experience, of course. He was a running back at Rutgers from I believe, the 2003 to the 2005 season, and then transferring over to UMass. He brings a unique skill set because I say this. He hasn't had a lot of big time jobs as far as where he's been. He's made stops. He's really made his splash as far as developing running backs at the East Coast. Some of the programs he's been with, obviously, on the collegiate circuit have been UConn, William and Mary, and Howard as a running backs coach. I think he really kind of set the tone of what kind of as good a running backs coach and assistant as he can be. I think where he really, kind of shined and kind of made his mark in a more big time program early on was when he was brought on as the recruiting coordinator at Penn State in 2017. And of course, this last season with Dante Dowell rushing for 614 yards and Emmett Johnson added 598 yards. So as far as bringing that whole package, EJ Barthel, former running back at Rutgers, has numerous coaching experiences. Again, now they're not at big time programs. He has worked under Matt Rule, and I think that that's something that will bring a lot of legitimacy to him being a possible candidate to replace at Texas. And of course, like I said, even though he's not within the Texas program, he does have those Texas ties. Of course, Kyle Flood, Longhorn offensive coordinator. He was Barthel was the guy that he brought on for player development and recruiting coordinator from 2013 to 2014 while he was at Rutgers. So I think EJ Barthel, again, while as far as his coaching experience doesn't have a lot of big time programs, especially SEC programs, I kind of think he brings a unique twist. I really like the different places he's been involved in on the recruiting trail, especially in Texas. I think he will open up a unique skill set outside, obviously, what he can do to develop running backs. Clearly, he has no problem going into big time programs and finding success with young running backs, obviously with transfer portal running backs. So I think he's one of the first guys that I put up on our list. To be one of the candidates over in Austin, to replace Choice down for the Longhorns. But like I said, when it comes to the choices, as far as coaches, you got to be meticulous. A lot of the things that we talk a lot about recruiting with some of the players, how this will affect. Again, both these guys. The second guy I'm going to mention, he also does bring a strong recruiting background to the table, and I say that that's so vital because in the spring, while there may not be a lot going on as far as play, the recruiting trail definitely heats up because we see a lot of these guys taking official visits. And again, when I talk to some of these high profile recruits, when we see kind of these changes where we were scheduled to go on a visit, unofficial or official, but they decide to a change of heart, it's often because their position coach or the coach that they build a relationship decides to move on. So while we're hearing that, this may be a little difficult as far as some guys possibly changing or, maybe reopening the recruitment that have Texas really high up on their list, we don't think it's going to be a dramatic change. Now, changing back to the second guy, we kind of hear in the rumblings who might be up for the running backs position coach for the Longhorns over in Georgia Tech. Running backs coach Neville McKenzie, of course, he's right there in the heart of Atlanta, has really been a hot recruiter as far as the state of Georgia. And I really like this for the Longhorns to be able not only to get someone with his type of background. We've seen what Georgia Tech can do as far as development. They are just one of those programs I think we don't talk enough about as far as the kind of talent development they do across the board. And I think McKenzie really brings a lot. And what I really like I said about him as far as the recruiting angle, is that he's an Atlanta native. He has really strong ties to the state of Georgia. And I think with Texas, despite it being so saturated, I think that, with a hire like him, bringing in that state of Georgia, that pipeline, opening up a different recruiting pipeline into the state of Texas could be something, with this kind of hire. and he was, like I said, he's got a strong track record. He was a running back at Vanderbilt from 2001 to 2004. He also made stops coaching at Louisville and Vanderbilt as well. And he's been at Georgia Tech for 2 seasons since 2023. Well, a year and a half, because we're going to that 2025 season. And he really would help Buster Faulkner really up that power rushing attack for the Yellow Jackets with his 2 seasons in the ACC. Again, under him, they were bolstering when it came to the rushing attack. So not only again does he have a track record, and he does bring, I think, that stronger experience as far as coaching and recruiting. Even outside the SEC, obviously, at Vanderbilt, but he has that experience at Louisville as well. So I think he brings a really well-rounded thing to the table. But again, as far as the recruitment, I like his Georgia background. I like him being able to. He was credited with helping develop Jamal Haynes, who was an all-conference back, obviously, at Georgia Tech. And again, Georgia Tech is one of kind of those programs that has just been known to strongly develop talent across the board, especially on the offense. So those are some of the guys. I'm sure that Texas will be making plenty of calls, but right now, as far as the running backs position, those are kind of the 2 names that we're hearing that are at the top of the list. We're also hearing rumblings of, Baylor coach that might be in the running, but we're hearing that's kind of cooled down. So I believe that it could very well be McKenzie or EJ Barthel heading to Austin.
Yeah, LeeAnn, as you mentioned, Jamal Haynes has been Norvell's prized development guy. That he has developed his skill into a 1,000-yard back the last 2 years, about 960 last year, over 1,000 yards the season before. So 2,000 yards on the ground out of Jamal Haynes as a product of Norval McKenzie over the last 2 seasons at Georgia Tech. Folks,
and again, I don't.
Yep.
And again, like I said, I know that Texas is I don't think that Texas will be in a rush. It is a obviously a pressing matter. We've seen that the run game, especially the SEC, has become something. The running back position has always been in value, but often overlooked. But we've seen this season just the need for a deep running back room, and so I believe that Texas will be not rushing towards making this higher, but I do believe they'll be meticulous because, of course, with the talent that they have, some of the names that we'll be talking about in the near future as far as running backs that Texas is looking at, they definitely want to have someone sooner rather than later, Mark.
LeeAnn delivers right here at the Voice of College Football and has been for a long, long time across the board. So you check out what she has, again, delivered, her background experience, and it's quite impressive. 15 years as an SEC sports journalist before she took over as director of football recruiting for the Rebel Walk, on-air analyst for the Big 12 Sports Radio at 96.1 FM, and Ole Miss analyst for HottyToddy.com. Add it all up, and it's quite impressive. And we're so happy to have LeeAnn here each and every Tuesday with us to talk recruiting and break down the transfer portal as well. Now we're going to get to it. And when guys are this good, we often hear that phrase pop up, reclassify, and Boobie Feaster is the latest.
Boobie Feaster is a kid that we've talked plenty about. Plenty of schools have been knocking on the door since he's been making a splash at DeSoto. We had the privilege of getting to watch him the last 2 seasons. We definitely watched him even closer this past 2 seasons. And he definitely made a splash, not only at the underarm camp this weekend, but last week when he decided to reclassify from the 2027 to the 2026 class. I am sure that there were plenty of programs that were grinning from ear to ear, Mark, when they heard that announcement of Boobie making the jump from the 2026 class to the 2026 class. And I've said it there. Every class has its standouts and it really shines, but there's just been something about this 2026 class that I've watched early on as far as the whiteout depth and talent that has really just been circulating, not just through the fall, but definitely as we get into deeper into camp season, we've really seen it. And even Boobie Feaster is a kid that I've been watching for a long time. Anytime he hits the ball, his speed, his size, his agility, he is as advertised and more. And it is no question that that fifth star that he earns is well deserved. But what I love about this kid, I had a lot of opportunity to see DeSoto early on in the season. Obviously, fall short in the Texas high school football playoff, but this definitely doesn't take from the talent he has. What I love about Feaster, when you see him, he knows that he's a star, but he's one of those kids that is really humble on and off the field. And even more, what I love, when you see a lot of times with kids like his talent, there's always this need when they hit the field is that they always have to be the ones making the plays. What I love about Boobie Feaster and what makes his talent even that much better and his leadership even that much better, and what is one of those qualities that just makes him that much more desirable if I'm a coach or a coaching staff, is that he loves to share the wealth. There was plenty of times this season when he was watching and cheering on his team from the sidelines, letting some of the younger guys within his class. So Rod Baker's a running back who's very much on the rise at DeSoto. There was a big time playmaker that shared the stage with Feaster. Miles Johnson Cook, another talented elite 5-star running back out of the 2027 class. That's been a yin to a yang as far as the offense in DeSoto for Boobie Feaster. So not only did Boobie every time he took the field make plays, but he was also good at helping his fellow offensive guys develop and sharing the wealth. And that's what you got to love about a talented kid like him. He's elite. There, and I say it a lot about the Texas talent, not taking away anything from the elite talent. If you were ever going to find a mecca of talent across the board, Mark, it's right here in the Lone Star State, no matter which position. They just are built different here in Texas, like they are in Florida, in Georgia, in other places. And I've always said it about the Texas talent. We've seen it in several cases, especially at the quarterback position, that often these guys like Boobie Feaster, who are at elite at such a young age. I mean, he's academically at 2027, but athletically he's about to step it up, and be a junior heading into the season. That this talent doesn't translate when they reach the next level. But I will tell you, if you were ever going to build a roster on young talent, I know that that's always a battle for programs. Do we go to the portal? Do we go build on young talent? But if I'm a coach, if I'm a program, just seeing the growth between the separation that Ethan Boobie Feaster continues to do, whether it is on his field with DeSoto, on the 7-on-7 circuit, and more importantly at these camps that we see him, there's just this immense growth that translates onto the field. I don't think there's ever not been a moment where you don't see this kid get better, and he already is elite. And he's one of those kids, if I were to put him to practice with a college program right now, he could hang and he's going to translate. Again, like I said, not only does he have an elite skill set, but I really believe watching him and observing him, which I often do, as much as I like to go to games to scout kids' talent, another big factor, much like we talk about the NFL, how's this kid's character? How's this kid's relationship with his coach, with his players? And again, I think that's just another remarkable quality that I've observed looking from afar, is just how he is around his teammates and how he's willing, despite often most people lining up to go see Feaster. Scouts are there to see him, but because of that notoriety that a kid like him with his talent has brought, it has also opened the doors for scouts like us to also see some unsung talent like Sarad Baker and other kids on this field. So again, another big weekend at the regional camp in Dallas by Ethan Boobie Feaster. But again, plenty of programs are on the move with him, looking to knock on the door. The two programs that we know as of now, Mark, that are getting those official visits. Remember, those are the ones that really do count. Those are the all outs, the wine, the dine. Those are the programs that you're really looking that really do have a chance. We're hearing, of course, that USC on June 6th and LSU on June 20th. He's also wanting to look at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is looking to get an official, but he hasn't set the date. Now, we feel like in this, obviously the Texas schools are big into play, but we feel like LSU really does have a strong push, because even though Feaster is at DeSoto in the DFW Metroplex area, he is a Louisiana native. So LSU is one of those schools that has really been making a push from the jump to try to get him to come back home. And we know that LSU is doing an extremely good job at really getting Feaster to be seen in his program, really opening the door. So definitely those are some schools to watch. He's looking for a place that we've heard, from talking to sources and him and watch him over different interviews and stuff and talking directly with him, a place where he can look for consistency and stability. We see a lot of coaches on the move and how that affects. BB Feaster wants to go to a program where he knows he's going to find consistency, continuity, and stability. So that's a big decision and a big factor in the schools that are going to receive his final visits. Obviously, SMU's been knocking at the door. Miami and Bama definitely are looking to hopefully bring on his explosiveness, earn an official billet. But again, like I said, he's just one of those players that brings speed, agility, his frame. He checks all the boxes day in and day out. And like I said, I would put that kid and take a bet and a gamble on him on a college football field, and he will step up and he will rise up to the challenge. And the thing about it, again, he's one of those elite kids that he remains humble. He works like he has no stars. Every time that I see him, no matter if it's in a small setting or it's a game situation or whether he's doing his own coaching with receivers on his sideline, pumping them up and helping them grow, he's always stepping up and rising to the challenge. So again, he's invaluable on and off the field, and it'll be exciting to see who will make the late push to get those final OBs. But definitely the Texas schools are working hard, but we really like what LSU is doing to try to get him back to his native roots and be a Bayou Bengal.
All right, LeeAnn, take a breath and we'll get you charged up for the next run here because we're going to camp. You ready to go to camp? We got some camp intel from LeeAnn, and it's always good to be secure and have the position of offensive tackle lined up. And that needs to be a strength if you want to win championships. And this is a really good one out of Texas.
FELIX OJO is a kid that everyone has been talking about. Now, he's one of the younger kids in the class of 2026, but like I said, in his case, age is just a number. It does not define him being on the younger side does not define the type of talent. He's really grown from his sophomore to his junior season, and he continues to be that guy. You're seeing him, of course, here this weekend. He was just a monster in the one-on-ones, and I think he was already one of the top tackles in the country. I think he was coming in. They have him at 6'6". He's probably closer to 6'7", around 273 or so. But like I said, he's one of those guys that he's the number 4 overall player. They have him as a number 6 offensive tackle, but I do believe as we get deeper into the camp circuit and definitely after his performance out in Dallas at Melissa High School this weekend, that he's going to have no problem continuing to solidify what all of us and in the Texas scene have been watching him do over down at Lake Ridge High School in Mansfield, Texas. But again, like many of these kids, he's got a wonderful list of offers that any person would be envious from the jump. But like many of these players, they want to go in and they want to head into their senior season, kind of not necessarily making a choice, but narrowing down. And last week, prior to his arrival at the Under Armour camp, he did trim down his list to a top 8. So these are the guys, as I like to say, the guys who still remain in the hunt for OJO services, one of the top offensive tackles to come out of Texas and in the country. Of course, Texas looking to keep his talent close to home. Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Ole Miss. So tune into Ole Miss Live tomorrow. We'll have more with OJO. We got to talk with him and share a little bit more about that because the Rebels are in the running. Florida, Georgia, and rounding it out with Oklahoma. Like I said, when you watch his film, and I've had the chance to watch him in person, live reps, during his high school football season, I really got to see him up close and personal in San Antonio, like many of us did with those live reps. And just what I've heard and exchanging comparisons from other scouts and national media while we're at these events, that we both all kind of come to the consensus. I think the general consensus as far as OJO's talent is he's really made that jump and he's made that growth from year to year. And you really want to see that, especially when it comes to a tackle. It's not as easy to be a lineman. It is not as easy to develop. You can have the size, you can have the power, but if you don't have all those little things that make the world go round, that make you a successful tackle at the next level, it's pretty much done. But OJO's not the case in that. He's one of those kids that gets better and better by the minute, and it is no question why he's such in high demand. Like again, I said I saw him at the Navy All-American Bowl, and he just really, for being one of the younger guys, you would never know because he's just transcended when it comes to his skill set. And he's definitely progressed. And he's not in rookie form by any means. He's extremely physical. He's athletic, and what I love about him, despite his already towering frame, he's not your typical lineman that's already got a lot of meat on him. He still has a ton of room to be able to put some muscle on him and even become more physical, which I think which we'll only see more of heading into this off season and summer season. So I expect him to bulk up, and I expect that not only increase his stock but his physicality. So I'm gonna love to see the difference between seeing him from December, and he's already grown enough into this, heading into mid-February. I can't wait to see him where he grows when he continues to hit the weight room this off season and even become more physical. Um, like I said, he continues to separate himself. I'm trying to look at my notes and try not to repeat myself as far as just what he brings to the table, but all weekend long, from what you saw in that film, he just commanded the one-on-ones, and I think he really made the case, for anybody who hasn't seen him or followed his career outside the Texas recruiting circuit, that he is one of the top tackles, not only in the state of Texas, but in the country right now. And we got a chance to talk with him, about, why in particular, Mark, did he choose these top schools, and he said that realistically he sees himself playing at all of these top schools, and he really wants to be at a place where he can make an impact early while having great relationships and with every staff member. So, it's going to be a tough haul. It's going to be a tough spring for some of these programs because he can already see himself. He's already developed great relationships with these places. He's already feels like he can play there. Now, as I always say in recruiting, now who's going to separate themselves from the pack? Who's going to ultimately be where he can see himself all the way around, not just being, a first rounder kind of pick and development, but also getting a great education. And and that goes back to, we know what kind of talent he is, but he himself, what he's looking for, he says he's really looking for a future home where he can be developed to be a first rounder. I mean, he's got big dreams, and he's well on his way to it. And he also wants to get a great education. So he wants the best of both worlds. So who's it going to be? Texas, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Michigan, that's going to be able to give Ojo the best of both worlds. But again, extremely physical, agile, and he's a really, if you were going, another thing, if you were going, like I said, if you're going to take a risk and you're going to build on that foundational talent, especially out of Texas, he's by no means that typical highfalutin conditional talent coming. He is as advertised, and each time you see him grow and progress, and he's definitely one that could be an instant impact player. Maybe not a starter heading on, but he definitely has a lot of foundation and skill set that I think will be invaluable to some of these programs that are really looking to build a stronger depth and be a depth piece, that can make an impact, down the line here for that 2026 class.
Now, coming off the edge, we've got another player out of Texas, and we don't need to go back too far to the national semifinal when Texas was 1 yard away from going to possibly a national championship game and trying to upset Ohio State when Jack Sawyer, a former five-star, came off the edge and hit Quinn Ewers and stripped the ball and went scoop and score. So these guys can be disruptive, and they can make a difference, obviously, in pressuring the quarterback and making game-changing plays when you get a good one. And here we've got one in Kevin Ford.
Kevin Ford is also another kid that I've had the pleasure of seeing up close and personal. He comes out of Powerhouse, Duncanville. There was a lot of Duncanville presence, of course, one of the powerhouse football programs, anchored by Keelan Russell in the offense. There was a lot of guys, out there making a presence. Kevin Ford is a kid that is well known here on the Texas circuit and definitely on the national circuit. He continues to be on the rise. Of course, you can see him being there, number 11 in the country as far as the edge position, coming out of number 5 here out of 15 out of the Lone Star State. But like you said, Mark, it is really a game of inches. And in those big moments, you want impact players on the defensive side of a ball, like an edge guy, who can really create chaos and really cause disruption. And Kevin Ford was one of those guys all weekend long. So where exactly he put on a heck of a show, but I think what everyone wants to know, within the state of Texas and out, especially coming out of Duncanville, where is Kevin Ford heading this spring and the summer? So some of the early dates that he shared that he'll be looking at, obviously he'll be making a stop in Tuscaloosa, out in Alabama, to see Alabama at the end of May on the 30th. Texas A&M, of course, making a huge push. Texas A&M really making a huge push as far as recruiting for this 2026 and 2027 in-state class. Mike Elko and his staff, of course, hiring former Ole Miss director of personnel DJ Mann, who has endless ties here in the state of Texas, has really been showing they really are being making a push for keeping a lot of this in-state talent. And Kevin Ford definitely is no different. He's set to visit A&M on June 13th, Oklahoma, and round out with the Sooners, as far as we know, June 20th. Now, despite staying in the SEC kind of schools, that's kind of where we've been hearing that Ford really wants to make his home, whether it be close to home at A&M or not too far off the way with the Oklahoma Sooners, and maybe Tuscaloosa. But there are some rumblings that Lincoln Riley, USC, really looking to make room in a place for him, obviously trying to bolster and find success and really get that defensive depth going with a dynamic player like Kevin Ford. So we're hearing that USC might be able to be a late push on that, possibly receiving a visit from Ford early June. But again, nothing has been confirmed for either camp, but it looks like he's going to remain in the SEC. Some other schools to watch aside from USC that are really making a late push. Obviously, the Sunshine State is looking to get a bolster, and we're hearing that Florida State and Florida are also in the mix. They have, again, he hasn't anything said as far as unofficials or official visits, but there's talks that if they make a good push, and as we see some of these schools, make pushes in other direction, this could open the door for Florida, USC, and Florida State later in the summer to possibly land at least a visit, maybe not an official visit, but an unofficial visit from top edge rusher Kevin Ford out of Duncanville.
Now let's stay on the defensive side, but go to linebacker. And I want to make sure that we get his name straight. DeQuivis Beck?
DeQuivis Beck.
Could have, who could be in the running there?
Well, this is a kid that has really caught my eye. He's been really under the radar, low profile. This is a kid that I think that really upped his stock this weekend on the camp circuit at Under Armour here in Dallas, out of Carthage, Texas. He's a top 247 linebacker. I think that his recruiting is just about to beef up, as like I said, once you get to see these guys in live reps, I really think it does make a difference. Obviously, we hear that Baylor's making a big push for them, obviously, with in-state talent. He'll be at Oklahoma. Some of the early visits that we're hearing that Beck is going to be taking right off the jump. He's wasting no time taking some unofficials as dead period finishes. He's set to go to Norman and visit the Sooners March 8th, Arizona State around mid-April. And again, Texas A&M, that's another name we're going to be hearing a lot when it comes to the 2026 and 2027 classes. They are doing a really fantastic job on the circuit this season, taking a risk and taking a chance on a lot of not only the high school talent, but specifically, like I said, Mark, in the state of Texas. This kid just catches my eye for so many reasons. Seeing him in person, seeing him on film. Of course, he helped lead Carthage to a 4A defensive D2 state championship last year, where he was named the defensive MVP as a junior. Just some of his stats coming off his junior season. He had 10 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack in the big win over 28-14 win over Waco La Vega. He helped, obviously, Carthage, like I said, clinch not only that state championship as a defensive MVP, but also hold that 15-1 record, where he saw his defense yield no more than 20 points in a game. But he just hasn't had a breakout season during his junior campaign. He's a guy that's really just been growing his stock and is really someone who's productive and create a lot of chaos. If you were ever one of those guys that was down to the wire, Beck is going to be that guy, I think, as time. As he polishes his skills, as he gets more out there, I think he's only going to be he has really great progression at the linebacker position. But he wasn't too shabby, Mark, on coming off his sophomore campaign where he had 102 tackles, 21 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, 3 PBUs, 31 pressures, 16 QB hits, and 2 defensive touchdowns. So again, Beck is one of those guys I'm surprised that we haven't heard a lot more about. But again, sometimes in this cases, and I believe in Beck's film, it didn't do it justice. If you can see, like I said, from his sophomore to junior season, he is someone who is not afraid to go head to head and create a little chaos. And I think he's going to be in high demand. We talked about some of the guys who are going to get early visits as far as his services and on unofficials right off the bat. But some of the ones who are getting those official visits that we're hearing is SMU in early May, Oregon State on June 5th, Texas A&M June 13, and Baylor. Baylor's making a really strong push to get him down to Waco, keep him close by, definitely with his kind of numbers, his kind of producers. So they're looking on June 20th to maybe get him on campus and really kind of make that late push and possibly get a commitment out. But again, this is a kid that despite all his rise and definitely will be getting a lot more calls. He's not unopen to making change. We're hearing some of the schools that are also making a late push for him that could very well help change the game as far as those official visits. Like I said, nothing's ever set in stone until you sign the dotted line, and that's definitely in the case. Oregon, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma are some schools that he shared that he would be interested in going to see and also be in consideration for official visits. So while it looks like SMU, Oregon State, Texas A&M, and Baylor are the ones who have gotten those official verbal dates, nothing is set in stone. So watch out for them, because Oregon, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma are not too far as the official visits are concerned for one of the rising stars. And kind of going back, Carthage, the program at Carthage High School is really well known for developing linebackers. And why I say we might have to watch out for Oklahoma again, it always goes back to relationships and recruiting. And Kip Lewis was a guy that the Sooners really knew very well, and really developed him. And he's out of Carthage now. While Beck shares he hasn't had a lot of conversations with him, there's already been that comparison. And so definitely the Oklahoma Sooners are really also making a strong push, because they are used to developing strong quarterbacks, and they know what kind of talent comes out of Carthage High School here in Texas. So again, Beck is setting himself very well, nicely down the camp circuit, and we look forward to talking more with him.
Absolutely. And now we move it on to the 2027s. So these guys have just completed, let's see, their sophomore season. So they still haven't stepped on the field as juniors. And I'm really curious about this guy, basically, because he's an all-purpose guy. So I don't know where he's going to fit, but he's obviously multifaceted, multi-skilled. Talking about Zane Rowe.
Zane Rowe out of Denton Guyer is a name that everyone's been really getting to know. He's really been on the rise. He really got a lot of notoriety, I think, as he went on the circuit this last season. But I think now, again, I go back to when you see these kids in live reps, when you get to see him in the flesh, in the person, and when you get to see him outside of their freshman season, I think you want to see that growth and development. And like you said, Mark, these are guys that really haven't had a lot of opportunity, despite their talent, to really be a staple in their school program. So they use this off season, they use the camp, they use the 7-on-7 circuits, to really bolster and really get those live reps. And I think that, in the high school recruiting era that we live in now, these guys are almost having to work twice as hard as far as getting seen, because we see it every day where these elite guys, these 4 and these 5-star guys are having difficulty, getting at the head of the table, with the transfer portal coming in. And then of course guys like Zane Rowe also are a unique asset when it comes to program, that they almost have found a different path that they take, because like you said, they're an all-purpose guy. He's being recruited as a defensive lineman by most of the schools, but there's a couple schools that are looking, because of his size and his frame, 6'5", 6'6", 220, that he could also kind of double as a tight end. But no matter where he goes, whether he's in the D line or he's at the tight end position, he definitely has a dynamic dynamic recruitment ahead of him. He was once an Oklahoma commit, even though he was a 2027. He was a verbal commit to the Sooners, but he's kind of shot. He since then has decided to reopen his recruitment, and rightfully so. He's still young, has the opportunity to test the waters, and I think now that he's had the opportunity to get out there, kind of sell his stock, kind of show his versatility, especially this weekend in Dallas. I think it gives him the opportunity to kind of, see what's out there aside from Norman. But Oklahoma still remains in the run. Texas is very much in the running. He has a strong relationship, with Jeff Banks out there. He hasn't really narrowed down the playing field, just kind of shared some of the schools that he's interested in. The only visit that he does have set up as of now, of course, would not on an official, but is down to Athens. He will be taking in Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs March 15th. So it's just right around the corner. So again, look for Zane Rowe to continue to make a splash on the camp circuit, and we look forward to bringing more about this rising star of the 2026 class in Denton Guyer in Texas.
Okay, LeeAnn, we are going back to the offensive tackle position, but now to 2027 and one of the very best, and we go back to Texas.
Back to Texas, like they say, is it everything's bigger and better in Texas. And if you're definitely looking for an offensive tackle at the high school level that you're willing to gamble on, that you're willing to build, Texas just might be the place that has some pretty strong guys. Brian Swanson, I actually started out my season down watching South Oak Cliff and North Shore down in Houston for that opening match. And Brian Swanson coming off the bus along with Cortavius Tizzy, Arizona commit, who I had the opportunity to catch up with at the Navy All-American Bowl. Both those kids, you can see why they are in high demand. Already a 4-star. He's been a staple already early on for that South Oak Cliff, anchoring down that line. He's just a big body kid that again he's got that deceptive speed. He's a lot quicker than, despite his build. He put on another show this weekend down in Dallas, not too far from home. But again, South Oak Cliff, I really am surprised that often that they get overlooked. Another gem that really does produce some of the top linemen in the country. I think we should go down to South Oak Cliff a lot more, because I was extremely impressed, and that was at the start of the year. But from what film I saw this weekend on the one-on-ones, Brian Swanson is just continues to show why he's a top OT in Texas. Again, he just coming off, he's got such a quick step coming off the ball, and he really just hones in, and there's nothing that he's afraid to take down. And again, we saw it in full force this weekend here in Dallas. Some of the schools early on to watch are Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and LSU. We're hearing, though, that if the national champions, Ohio State Buckeyes, have been keeping a close eye on Swanson, and we're hearing from the buzz that there might be an offer in hand sometime soon. And we're hearing that if that were to be the case, that Ohio State would definitely take a big jump in Swanson's recruitment. So again, you can never say no to the national champions. But again, he's already building a strong offer sheet, one of the best offensive linemen to come out of Texas, out of South Oak Cliff. But again, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and LSU really solidifying their place in his recruitment. But again, Ohio State has been watching on. They've been recognizing his talent and the potential that he has to be a strong depth piece in that 2027 class. So don't be surprised if after this that Ohio State pulls the trigger and Brian Swanson will have his next offer from the national champions in the Buckeyes.
Okay, LeeAnn, anytime I see this on the notes, standing on business, I know you're getting serious, and I know this is a serious prospect. So I want to know why Peyton Houston has that note next to his name.
Well, the Louisiana native out of Evangelical Christian down in Shreveport put on a show. He stood on business at the QB position. There was a lot of guys as far as the linemen, the running backs, the wide receivers, the DBs. It really showed out. I wish that I could showcase everybody, because like I said, if you're going to come to Texas, there's going to be a ton of talent. But Peyton Houston, as far as that 2027 quarterback class, just really stood out to me. He talks about LSU, Miami, Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, and Michigan are just some of the programs that he has on his mind. He doesn't have anything as far as visits as of this weekend. Heading into the spring, as far as any of those schools, he said he hasn't really decided a timeline as far as commitment. He's definitely taking in the process. He did win the QB MVP. Like I said, he put on a heck of a show this weekend. And when I read his accolades after that, it's hard to believe that after his showing and the numbers he put up at Evangelical Christian in Shreveport, why this kid isn't unranked. But it just goes to show, even if you don't have the stars, Mark, the talent will always prevail. And it definitely did for 27 QB Peyton Houston. But again, he's one of those kids that programs are not willing to it doesn't matter that he's unranked or he's under the radar. In fact, they probably like that because they're getting into his recruitment early. But he already has 26 offers from plenty top Power Four programs. But just kind of giving you his background outside his during his fall campaign, he had 5,170 total yards, 45 touchdowns. He set an NFHS record with 817 passing yards in a game. 5A state record of 4,400 pass yards, first team all district, first team all prep, first team LSWA all state, and he was also a max prep sophomore all American. As you can see, all the guys are on board. So watch out. Houston could not only be solidified with their 2026 QB and Keyshawn Henderson, but you best bet that they are keeping eyes on not too far away with some of the schools. But again, like you see, those are some of the smaller programs. But again, the Power Four programs are going to be jumping on the Houston bandwagon probably very soon if they haven't already. Like I said, he only showed he only solidified, and I know I use that phrase a lot this weekend and a lot on the show today, but I think at these camps we continue to see this is what you want to see as a scout, this is what you want to see as a program. And remember, because we're in dead period, coaches are not at these events, so they're using film, they're using other things in order to be able to evaluate these kids from afar. So again, Peyton Houston almost had to work twice as hard to be able to jump off that film this weekend, but he definitely did do that with great success. And again, he's a kid that is definitely going to be on the rise, right at there at that 6', 6'1" kind of frame. But what I like about him, he's not just, a tall, lengthy with a tall frame kind of QB. If you look at him, and I think it attests to what kind of arm strength he has, Mark, is just that his upper body and his arms are just kind of more physical and built, more, kind of like a lineman or kind of like a bulkier kind of guy, but very still trim and slim. But I do believe that power that he possesses in his throwing arm really shows with the way, not only with his tall frame, but his athletic build as well. And I think that physicality and just kind of what we watched in the short amount of time that we saw this weekend, that he definitely will be getting a lot more phone calls. But Peyton Houston out of Evangelical Christian in Louisiana, definitely standing on business, and I look forward to seeing what he can do in the future with those schools that are after him. But plenty of schools are going. That 26 offer should be hit 36 by the next end of the week. I can imagine that.
You might be watching on Facebook. You might be watching on Twitter/X. Please join us on the YouTube channel and please subscribe. And you can make your comments here if you're joining us here, because we got about 60 on the line. But I'm guessing most of you are not here on the YouTube channel, and that's where we would love for you to interact with us and engage about high school football recruiting and the transfer portal every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And definitely when these schools keep popping up, especially in the state of Texas, many of them surrounding the Houston area, you see time after time the same schools popping up. And in your rundown today, obviously, Duncanville has popped up a few times, and now you've got a wide receiver prospect here in 2027.
Well, a lot of the names, Mark, that we talked about obviously were the movers and shakers. Obviously, being at Dallas Regional Under Armour camp, we are going to see more of the Texas kids come out and be closer. There were some out-of-state kids, but that's why we focused a lot on Texas, especially Duncanville, just right around the corner, another DFW Metroplex powerhouse with a lot of player presence. But of course, we also want to talk about every week. We talked about Deshaun Spencer making a splash down in Georgia for opening weekend of Under Armour is kind of our stock riser. So I have two stock risers this weekend. Trenton Yancey, wide receiver, 2027 out of Duncanville. He was another kid that I had the opportunity to watch. Again, he's swiftly been on the rise. Another Texas recruit that is really well known. Like I said, it doesn't hurt that he's a part of the Duncanville program that's just known for developing top talent. Got some reps in the season. Another unranked kid that has an offer sheet that would definitely not match that. He has 26 offers despite being unranked. He was really impressive again on those one-on-ones, the way he run those routes. Another Swifty cut guy with solid hands all weekend long. Some of the early schools to watch that we're hearing in his recruitment: LSU, Oklahoma State, Alabama, and Texas A&M. There we go with the Aggies again, really making a push in that Texas pipeline. I like to call it the Texas flood continues, but will that I don't know how far that Texas flood will get outside of College Station with the way with the way they are working down at A&M, but Texas A&M, Mark, is another one of those schools. We were talking about Auburn being one of those schools. Texas A&M is one of those schools that's really hitting hard on the recruiting trail as far as the SEC schools are going to keep a lot of talent from Texas and really bring that pipeline. But more importantly, Mark, they're more willing to build a roster on these 2026 and 2027 guys. So Trenton Yancey, 2027 wide receiver, super impressive, great hands, great speed. Again, I got to see him plenty of times. When he was able to get in the mix for Duncanville on several games this past season, really impressive. Again, he's a name that within the Texas circuit, but again, he's really making that separation and that push, even if it's the 2027 class, to really become a household name. And he doesn't, and like I said, he's got 26 offers unranked, but again, I think that after this showing in Dallas, that he definitely will be adding some stars to his name.
All right. Last but not least, and Cheryl, thank you so much for saying hi in the chat, is Devontre Kirkland, who's out of Waco.
Devontre Kirkland is one that he's going to make a big push. And I think, again, that's why he was one of my stock risers out of Waco University School. Defensive back, he really caught my eye. And I think this weekend, similar to Deshaun Spencer last weekend, he really set the tone and made a name for himself while he was at workouts. I think he's already built a solid offer sheet, but you can never have too many offers, especially when you're starting to trim the list down. Some of the early schools that we're hearing, obviously Baylor, close by school, really making a push. That's kind of the close one by that he's really had a lot of relationship. Houston, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, of course, are just some of the schools that are showing love and that he's been eager to build a relationship with. Again, I really like in this case, I feel like Texas A&M is really getting on Kirkland's recruitment early on. They've already built a relationship there, a strong relationship with the Aggie DB coach. Kirkland shares along about that. Of course, obviously, it's really early still in his recruitment, but again, some of the schools that to watch are Baylor and Houston and Oklahoma, but I really like Texas A&M to not necessarily bring on Kirkland as a starter. There's still a lot in his recruitment, but definitely sell him on the fact that they can not only upgrade his talent, but he can be one of those depth pieces and those foundational talents that they built for it in that DB room down in College Station.
Again, everyone, you might be watching not just the live show, you might be watching a clip on one of the team channels. And if you like what you hear, love the analysis, as we've received a lot of great comments about LeeAnn's work, then you make it on back here for the live show every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So we expect to see you here. You can leave your comments and questions, and we will get to those during the live show here each and every, again, Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time with LeeAnn. I think you've done your work this week.
I think I've stood on business as much as I could, as far as, like I said,
guess so.
the under.
I don't know if I'd
the
say
under
that.
our.
Yeah.
the Under Armour camp, we could have gone on, but Mark and I would have probably been here all afternoon, possibly into the early evening with all the great talent. We're looking forward to join the Under Armour camp circuit. We'll be hitting Houston. We'll also be hitting the Elite 11 with the, following some QBs, not just the ones in the SEC, but across the conference. So looking forward to that April and March, of course, hitting 7-on-7 circuit here soon. We're really excited. That's why we want you definitely to not only subscribe to our channel, but catch us live on Tuesdays. We have a lot of exciting recruits and guests set to come on in the next couple weeks. So, as much as Mark and I can break down the talent of some of the nation's top players, what better than to hear it from the players themselves directly? So we have a stellar lineup coming up. I won't break the surprise just yet, but hopefully next week we'll have some guys out of Georgia who are definitely making some splashes. Join us on the show to talk about their recruitment. I hear that Texas A&M might be an interesting topic that's on the minds, definitely of one of top wide receivers in the country. But again, Mark and I are here. There's no off season when it comes to recruiting, so make sure you lock us in every Tuesday and join us. Again, any guys or that you want to talk about, we love to cover and break it down. So join us every Tuesday live on the Voice of College Football Recruiting Show.